Hey everybody, it's Kendra. Welcome to my channel if you're new, and welcome back if you've been here before. My video today is going to be all about troubleshooting and answering questions that a lot of you have asked me about brewing Jun or kombucha. I've gotten tons of questions on my Jun video, a bunch of questions on my 2 kombucha videos, my part 1 troubleshooting video. So this is going to be like kombucha Jun troubleshooting part 2. Basically just answering a ton of your questions all in one place. So first of all, I want to say thank you so much for everyone who has watched my kombucha and my Jun videos. Oh my gosh, love it. I feel so much love from you. Thank you. All right, so let's get into your questions. I've been asked this one a ton. If you watched my Jun video, you would have seen in that corner back there, I had a couple big vessels. I had a kombucha one and a Jun one. My kombucha and my Jun were neighbors back in the day. No more. I kept getting questions like, oh, I read that you shouldn't keep your kombucha and your Jun next to each other, like it does something with the air and, you know, there's bacteria going back and forth. I don't know what the reasoning is, but I figure, it kind of makes sense. I kind of want to keep them separated. So that baby right there is Jun, and then in my corner, like right here that you can't see, that is my kombucha corner. I haven't had any problems with them. I mean, I didn't notice issues with them when they were living side by side, but I kind of like to keep them separate. Give them some space, give them their own little corners. All right, next question. Kendra, I just started brewing kombucha and it's not fizzy. There's not a new SCOBY for me and it doesn't taste good. What am I doing wrong? Okay, if this is your first time brewing, chillax. I found that when I first started, it really took me probably 3 or 4 cycles to really get things going and to actually taste good, like where I actually wanted to drink it. Feels so bad. I was so excited about making kombucha when I first started that I gave away like a lot of my first couple batches, and people were like, oh yeah, that's really good, and I'm just like, no, it's not. I'm so sorry. So to anyone who had to like endure my like really bad initial kombucha, I'm sorry. So totally normal if it's not very good or fizzy or anything the first couple batches. It really takes time for like the SCOBY to get in there and just, you know, grow and really like populate that whole vessel with bacteria and yeast. Now, if you are having this problem and you've been brewing for a while, I immediately think temperature. When I first started brewing kombucha in California, it was summer and it was 85 and we did not have air conditioning. So my kombucha brewed very, very quickly. Now that I'm in Wisconsin, I mean, we have air conditioning here and it's just so much colder. I find in order to have decent kombucha, I have to be heating it with a heating pad all the time. Kombucha really likes it to be between 75 and 85, with 80 degrees being that sweet spot. So I would say if your kombucha doesn't have like a nice SCOBY growth, I mean, you should be getting a nice thick layer of SCOBY each time you brew. If you're getting a really thin layer of SCOBY, if it's not fizzy, if it doesn't taste good, if it just kind of tastes like blah and flat, it's too cold. So I would say get a heating pad, wrap it around there. You don't need to keep it heated all the time. I mean, I have a heating pad that shuts off after 2 hours, which I find to be quite convenient. With that said, definitely get yourself some adhesive thermometer strips. This is so helpful. I mean, I say, you know, kombucha likes to be between 75 and 85. How are you gonna know if you don't have a thermometer of some sort? So that definitely makes things so much easier. And also along those lines, if you are brewing both kombucha and Jun, it is helpful, like I said, to keep them in separate corners so that they can sort of have their own temperatures going on. Now, if you really don't want to mess around with having to heat your kombucha and you just feel like it's too much of a fuss and your kombucha, you just don't want to baby your kombucha, I would highly recommend switching over to Jun because it likes a cooler temperature. Like we usually keep our apartment around 71, 72, and I can have 2 gallons of Jun brewed in 6 or 7 days. Whereas even with heating my 2 gallons of kombucha, it can easily take me 10 to 14 days. So Jun is so much faster and it's so much easier to brew. Plus it likes a colder temp, so if temp is an issue for you, switch to Jun. Okay, next question. Kendra, I forgot about my brew and now it's over fermented and it tastes gross. What do I do? Do I just dump it? So I have a couple thoughts on this. If it's kombucha, I don't really have much of a problem dumping it, just because kombucha is very cheap to produce. If it's Jun, like first of all, I just really try to not let my Jun over ferment. I'm constantly tasting it, you know, starting on around day 5 to just sort of estimate when it's going to be done. Jun is so much more expensive to produce, so I really don't want to let that over ferment and have to waste any of that. Now, with that said, if I have some spare gallon glass jars, I fill up those glass jars with like the over fermented kombucha or Jun. I cover them with, a dish towel and securely fasten that. And I let that sit for about a month or 2 months and let it turn to vinegar. I like to put that in half-gallon glass growlers, and I actually leave it next to my bathtub. And then every time I take a bath, I dump in maybe like 2 or 3 cups of Epsom salt and probably like 2 cups of this kombucha or Jun vinegar. It's apparently very good for like detoxifying your skin, detoxifying your body. And I figure, well, I've got like 3 or 4 gallons of vinegar, so why not? Another thing you can do that I've actually started doing, I've started making my own toner using either kombucha or Jun vinegar. Basically, I just take like a little spritzer bottle, maybe put like 2/3 of the bottle like distilled water, 1/3, this vinegar, and then some tea tree essential oil, and then also Manuka essential oil. So I really like that, and I haven't it doesn't seem to make my skin any worse. So it's a very, very affordable and super easy to make toner. All right, my next issue, Kendra, my brew is really cloudy. It tastes too yeasty. It's weird. So in this case, just clean out your vessel. I recommend to everyone, just clean out your vessels every 4 months. And when I say clean out your vessel, I say remove the SCOBY, take out maybe a quart, if you're doing 2 gallons at a time, maybe save 1 quart of already fermented kombucha or Jun, set that aside, and then just dump everything and just wash it out. Use some type of soap, hot water. If you're using a spigot, remove the spigot, clean that out really well, and obviously rinse very, very well with hot water. You don't want any soap residue in there because that can harm your SCOBY. So yeah, I actually just did this. I think the last time I had cleaned my vessels was in September, and now we're mid-January, and I just reset everything. This is gonna help just rebalance the population of yeast and bacteria in your vessel, and it'll get rid of it being too cloudy and too yeasty. Okay, what's the ideal temp for brewing kombucha and for brewing Jun? Like I said, kombucha likes to be between 75 and 85, with about 80 degrees being ideal. Jun likes it around 70. I would say upper 60s to about 75, with 70, 71, 72 being that sweet spot for Jun. So that's why I say brew Jun. It's so much easier than kombucha. I was all about kombucha before. Since I started making Jun, I'm just you are just so simple. It's not complicated. I look at kombucha don't listen kombucha, but you're so finicky. Anyway, try out Jun. You'll love it, I promise. Okay, next question. Kendra, I see that you're using a stainless steel spigot on your vessel. I thought we weren't supposed to have any metal touching our brew. What's the deal? So I definitely agree, and I had heard this too. When I took a class about making kombucha, we definitely discussed this, and I totally trust my teacher, Elizabeth at Preserved in Oakland, California. Love you and trust you. She had said, you don't want to be putting an aluminum spoon in there or copper or something like this. Stainless steel is the least reactive metal, so you're probably not going to have a problem. If you want a spigot, what are the options for spigots? It's either stainless steel or the cheap plastic one that's been coated with silver paint that usually comes with the vessel. I definitely don't want that. So I don't have a problem with that small amount of stainless steel touching my brew, from the spigot. If you are super concerned about metal touching your brew, then I would say you're just going to have to use gallon glass jars that don't have a spigot. Also, my other thought on this topic, most commercial brewers, pretty much every commercial brewer out there is going to be brewing in stainless steel vessels, the ginormous stainless steel ones. So my attitude is, well, if these massive commercial brewers are brewing in a huge stainless steel vat, then my little spigot shouldn't be that much of an issue. Okay, next question relates to SCOBY hotels. So a SCOBY hotel is basically a place where you put all your backup SCOBYs, just so they can kind of rest, and you just always have extra SCOBYs in case something happens to your brew. So basically, all I do for a SCOBY hotel, take a glass jar, whatever size, dump your SCOBYs in there, and maybe once a month I feed it with some sweet tea. Like if I'm making kombucha or Jun, once I've got that tea all prepared to go into my next batch, I just scoop off a few cups of it, put it into my hotel. I leave my hotel just covered, you know, exactly how I do my kombucha, just cover it with a towel and securely fasten it with like a hairband, and I leave it on the counter. Like right now I don't have a Jun Scoby hotel going, but I do have a kombucha Scoby hotel. So my kombucha Scoby hotel lives right next to my vessel of kombucha. Do I refrigerate my Scoby hotel? No, I don't. I mean, even if I'm gone, if I were on vacation for like a month, oh my gosh, the dream. No, I wouldn't put it in the fridge. I would just literally leave it room temp next to my kombucha. I know some people say if you refrigerate it, sometimes when you take it out, it can be hard to like get everything going again. So I just say like, don't bother. Alrighty, next question. Will kombucha or Jun make my house stink? No, I mean, it definitely has like a slight vinegary sort of scent, but if you're taking care of your brew and not letting it get to the point where it is like proper vinegar, which you would have to neglect your brews for like 2 months to get it to be that point, you won't really smell it. I mean, sometimes you will smell, oh, like it smells a little vinegary, but for me, I never smell it outside of my kitchen. And I really never smell it like outside of like my little brewing corners. So smell to me, not a problem. All right, next question. Where did you get your giant tea ball or your vessels or your like stainless steel replacement spigots? All of those are from Amazon, and I will link everything down below what I use to brew. Another question I've been getting a lot recently, you know, why do you use the infusion method for flavoring your kombucha or Jun? Why not just make juice? Both work. You know, when I took my class, our teacher really recommended just like the infusion method. I think it had to do with like the brew getting into the skin of the produce and just like pulling out nutrients from that. You know, I mainly started out using the infusion method. Recently, I have been playing around more with actually juicing stuff and adding that. Juicing it is so much easier. I mean, you cut out that step of, you know, having to let it sit for 24 hours and then strain out the solids and then bottle it. So, I mean, both work. There are definitely certain things I prefer to juice. You know, anything citrus, I'm gonna juice. Ginger, I get a way better flavor if I juice ginger than just let it infuse. You know, beets, for example, I've played around with infusing and I've played around with juicing. They both work. Apples, same thing. So it's really a personal preference. If you have some extra time, you know, you can play around with infusing. Just both of them work. All right, next question. How much loose tea do you use for your kombucha or your Jun? Personally, I use 3 tablespoons of loose tea per gallon of either kombucha or Jun. So if I'm doing Jun, per every gallon, I'm using 3 tablespoons of green tea. For kombucha, I tend to do 2 tablespoons of green and 1 tablespoon of black. You could just use all black. I don't like to use all black because I find the taste to be too astringent. So I like to really balance it out and kind of mellow it out with green tea. I used to do half and half green tea and black tea for my kombucha, but I've started doing slightly more green tea than black. Next question, do you keep burping the bottles after you refrigerate them? So if you've watched my other 2 videos, you'll notice like once I've flavored my my kombucha or Jun and it's bottled, I leave it at room temp to just sort of build up some carbonation. I open it every 12 hours, burp it, just to release some carbonation and to see the level of carbonation that I've got. Once I put that in the fridge, no, I do not continue to burp it. I'm only burping it when it's at room temp. Just because frankly, I don't want them to explode either outside, like at room temp, or once they go in the fridge. Next question, what is Jun supposed to taste like and how do I know if it's gone bad and if it tastes like alcohol? I know I had someone asking about like, I think it tastes like alcohol. To me, if it tastes like alcohol, it's probably over-fermented. Jun to me should have a very light taste, slightly like honey flavor, kind of like a very light cider, a little bit of honey, just bubbly and delicious. They call it the champagne of kombucha. So to me, it definitely should have a lighter flavor than kombucha. And I always find like directly from the vessel, my Jun is always fizzier than my kombucha right out of the vessel. All right, next question. I can't have honey. Maybe you're allergic to honey or maybe you're vegan. I want to make Jun, but I can't have honey. What can I use as a replacement? I don't know. People have asked me this. I would just say make kombucha instead, because Jun to me needs the honey. So I'm not really sure what you could use as a replacement. I've never tried like maple syrup or any other type of replacement. I've always just used honey. Also, can I use decaf tea? Like, I'm very sensitive to caffeine. Can I use decaffeinated tea? Personally, I've never used decaf tea, but I have read that if you are sensitive to caffeine, what you should do is just blanch your tea leaves, like use normal tea leaves, loose tea leaves, put hot water over those, let it sit for about 5 minutes, then dump out the liquid, and then use those tea leaves, those blanched tea leaves, and use that to steep to make your tea. Doing that initial blanching stage should help remove some of that caffeine. And my final question, I have too much Jun and kombucha in my fridge. What do I do? Give it to your friends, drink a whole bunch, get people interested in drinking it, just give it away. And then also take a break on your brewing. I have this problem all the time with Jun. I can easily get 2 gallons of Jun every 6 or 7 days. That basically means I'm gonna have about 14 or 15, 16-ounce bottles. I can't drink that in a week. So I have to really keep on my husband to drink it. I give away a lot of it, but I would say maybe every 2 or 3 cycles, I'll just take a little break. I just, if I've got a finished 2-gallon vessel of Jun, I'll take off, 2 gallons, and I'll just leave, a good chunk of Scoby and starter liquid in there, and I'll just leave it for about a week. Like, you don't have to do anything special with it, just leave it. And then when I finally feel like, okay, I'm getting down in my Jun or kombucha stash, then I'll just make some sweet tea, add it, good to go. All right, so there you go. I hope you found that helpful, and those are some answers to a lot of the questions I've gotten about brewing Jun or kombucha. Please let me know if you have any other questions or any thoughts or opinions on any of this stuff. And happy brewing. I love brewing. I've been brewing kombucha almost 2 years. Jun for almost 1 year. I love both of them, but I totally prefer Jun just because it's so much easier and it's way less fussy. Also, finally, I just want to mention, please, if you are brewing kombucha or Jun, invest in this book, The Big Book of Kombucha. This is by far the best kombucha resource out there. And so much of this about brewing kombucha applies to brewing Jun. There's not a huge difference between the two. And a lot of times when I get questions from you guys, I just go look them up in this. Like, sometimes I'm not super sure about specific things, so that's how I get a lot of my answers for you. And of course, let me know if you have any other questions and I will do my best to answer them. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.